It has been a while since we last checked out the Saltwater Paludarium, and it's hard to believe it's been nearly 300 days since I set it up. So yeah, I figured it's a good time to check back in on it and show you what's been going on. We're working on two very exciting projects and I can't wait to show you all the content that's being worked on. Without further ado, let's check out the Saltwater Paludarium and see what has changed. I couldn't believe my eyes when I rewatched the previous episode. So much has changed over the past 2.5 months, it's insane. When you see the aquarium every day, you don't really notice how much something changes. But wow, it's crazy. First of all, just look at how much the aquarium has filled out. The macroalgae has truly transformed this aquarium. Over the past 2.5 months, I've also been able to get my hands on some new macros. I tried to make my collection as big as possible. With so many different kinds of macroalgae available in the world, it's hard to get them all. A friend of mine from Spain recently sent me an amazing package containing a variety of new species that I didn't have before. I got some new macroalgae, some live copepods for the aquarium itself, and Cheeto Grow. His online store called Jelly Farmer is definitely worth checking out, and I'll leave a link in the description of this video. The macroalgae he sent me is truly fascinating. I also received a very cool shipment from outside of the EU recently, but more on that later as it ties right into our next project. I've been dosing this fertilizer called Cheeto Grow for 2 weeks now, and the aquarium is looking much better already. By the way, this is not sponsored, Brightwell isn't a sponsor of my channel, these are my true findings as always. Everything is growing so fast. It is clear that the macros were lacking some essential trace elements. Speaking of trace elements and water parameters in general, in the previous update I mentioned I was having some trouble with some of my corals. I tested some key water parameters and figured some were way off. I managed to fix these imbalances and we were back on the right track, or so I thought. As it turns out, some trace elements were being used faster than they were being replenished by water changes. Mangroves, macroalgae and even some coral use trace elements like potassium and iron. However, when you have this much and it's all growing rapidly, these elements are being consumed at an incredible rate. When we set up this aquarium, we used a base layer of miracle mud. This is a mix of essential elements to support mangrove growth and overall system health. We then topped that off with live sand and I thought we were off to a good start. And to be honest, we kinda were. Just look at how much these plants have grown over the past 300 days. A lot of the mangroves have started branching out, finally. These plants are growing so fast that they now require additional supplements to maintain their beautiful green leaves. As you can see, some leaves are discolored or dying off entirely. This doesn't look good. However, we can fix these issues by dosing liquid fertilizers and adding root taps into the substrate. I'll be sending off ICP water tests on a frequent basis now to make sure we find a good balance with this. But not all mangroves are growing as quickly. I noticed that the ones not directly underneath the LEDs aren't really growing at all. It looks like they're slowly pushing out new growth, but it's so slow and we might be better off moving them somewhere else. I recently added some new plants to the plant mountain and moved a few others to other places. I added 2 new orchids, some bromeliads, and it's looking amazing. However, one thing not looking amazing at all is the moss. It dries up so fast since it's not a closed environment. I also haven't been able to install an automatic misting system yet, and let me explain why. We might have to take down part of this setup pretty soon. Yep, you heard that right. Since these mangroves are growing so fast, parts of the underwater world are in the shadows, limiting the space we have for macroalgae and coral. On the left part of the aquarium, I tied the mangroves closer to the wood, keeping them out of the light using fishing line. This helped open up the area underneath a lot, but it's only a temporary fix. We'll probably have to move these lights higher up or mount them differently. Now, since these mangroves are branching out, we can soon start shaping them with bonsai wires and create smaller bush-like trees. This will hopefully help limit these problems. I'm struggling to find a good solution for the lighting and the lack of moisture that is both practical and good looking. So if you have any suggestions, or if you are an engineer, tell me in the comments down below what you think works best here. I really appreciate it. For the time being, I added a makeshift setup to provide additional lighting to the part right underneath these mangroves. Anyways, let's see what else has changed inside the aquarium, because some fish have moved out of here. If you are a regular viewer, you may have noticed that the sand-sifting goby is gone, as well as the Falco's hawkfish. Both were becoming a pain in the rear because of the way they acted. These sand-sifting goby kept dumping sand into the mouths of certain corals, irritating them and over time starving them to death. I managed to catch one of the two sand-sifting gobies a while back, but the other one was way too fast, up until recently. I was lucky and managed to catch it. Once out of the aquarium, I dropped it off to the fish store, and that's one problem solved. The Falco's hawkfish is currently in my 6-gallon Reef Casa tank. I'll bring it to the fish store soon. As we knew before, these fish are known for eating small inverts like sexy shrimp, porcelain crabs, and other small snails and shrimp. Well, I had quite a few of all of those in my aquarium, and let me emphasize the word had. And now I know why. This fish managed to snack on a fortune worth of inverts. I even caught it right in the act. What a stupid decision. Oh well, the fish had a feast and I don't have any inverts left. Just kidding, I know 2 of my porcelain crabs are still alive and live in separate anemones. One lives with the clownfish and the other lives in the tide pool with the sexy shrimp. This Reef Casa tank has transformed into a macroalgae jungle, as I keep adding my cuttings to it when I do maintenance on the big tank. It's incredible to see how much 1 week worth of macroalgae cuttings can look like. And speaking of Reef Casa, I'm working on something incredible. Over the past few weeks we've been working on a new studio or fish room. As of now, I have 2 Reef Casa aquariums waiting in that room, and 2 more are set to arrive next week. This means we'll have 5 different models of the Reef Casa line, and this gives us so much opportunity to create cool ecosystems and videos. Let me know what you would like to see in these tanks, and we might be able to make it happen. You all seem to love the Reef Casa aquariums. I did 4 videos on the 6-gallon a while back, and through the affiliate link I have for these aquariums in the description of my videos, over 20 people were inspired and bought the same aquarium or a different model. That's incredible and makes me feel so good. It helps make this all possible, as I get a small kickback from it at no additional cost to you. In addition to these Reef Casa tanks, we'll also have additional room left. So if you have any cool suggestions in terms of freshwater aquariums or even terrarium ecosystems, there's plenty of opportunity here. Alrighty, let's head back upstairs and check out the second project. This one was announced back in February, but due to some insane delays with the custom aquarium I ordered, it hasn't made any further progress. About 2 weeks ago, they finally delivered the right aquarium, and now we can start building that setup as well. This is going to be so insane. And I really hope you all are ready for a lot of content, because it's about to get serious. In the previous episode, I wasn't happy with the way certain parts of the system looked. Take a look at this part, for example. It's a very steep rock wall and there's not a whole bunch of room in between the rocks and the glass. This limits us in terms of coral placement, and the macroalgae up top created a big shadow. It didn't look good at all. You can check back on the previous episode to see how that looked. It was awful. I trimmed down a lot of that macroalgae and shaped it up so that more light could reach the bottom of the aquarium. I then added some different species of algae in different shapes, colors and sizes. I glued some belly polyps and tube worms to the rock and put some mushrooms on the sand. In my opinion, this is a huge improvement to the system. The foul fish I have in this aquarium blend in perfectly with the Halimeda algae. Sometimes they are so hard to find, but that's what made this system so special. I have a ton of small gobies in here as well, but as these macroalgae and corals grow, it becomes harder to spot them. If you are a regular viewer, you might remember that I've been dealing with some Aptasia anemones in this tank. They are pests, pests, and foul fish are known to be natural predators. However, mine seem to leave them alone. These fish are tank bred, which is probably why they aren't really eating them. Wild-caught fish have natural instincts, but I've heard from multiple people that they have the same issue that I have. They leave the anemones alone and only eat frozen foods and even dry foods in some cases. There are other natural predators to these anemones like peppermint shrimp and Bergia nudibranchs. I added some very small peppermint shrimp, but let me remind you of my Falco's hawkfish, and then you can probably fill in what happened to these shrimp. Yep, you took a right guess. A friend of mine recently gave me some cool torch corals out of his own setup. His colonies were massive, so he cut off a few heads to put in my tank. They may look boring with this lighting, but with some blue and an orange filter over the lens, the colors are to die for. They look amazing and I'm so thankful for these corals. The problems I was facing with my fish a few months ago seem to have been fixed now. I haven't had an ick outbreak, and part of the reason why is that I've removed stress factors, increased feeding, and provide them with quality foods only. This keeps the fish healthy and their immune systems up, making them less prone to catch diseases or be bugged by parasites. Now this doesn't mean I was starving my fish previously, but just as a balanced diet is super important for us, the same applies to fish as well. They just need a balanced diet with enough vitamins and just good quality food. Anyways, there's probably still a lot more I can talk about, but that's something for the next one. If there's anything you'd like to know about this system, or if you have any suggestions, write them down below and I hope to see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.